in the episode that aired last week, everyone was safe. As you're kind of going between that safety and then kind of having to deal with this, how much time do you have to linger on, oh my God, we all got to be safe, and then kind of worrying, okay, what does that mean for us going forward in the competition?
Oh, the problem is week by week, the stronger teams keep staying. And so the competition keeps getting more difficult. And so even though everyone was safe, it's still, you got a room full of really good builders. So it's like, the next challenge, it's going to test you and you got to really put your A game on because you could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no time to just like relax. Even though it's exciting to hear no one's going home, it's like you're instantly like, okay, that means there's still another good team here.
Yeah, I
So,
think it also made other people think, is there going to be a double elimination since nobody went home? So it kind of had everybody on eggshells a little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and this this particular challenge was not easy at all. When you were trying to pick your item to build, what was going through your mind as you were picking what you did?
Well, the Brickmasters, they had told us, we want to see ambition, like we're going to take ambition into account. So if you go really small, like it better be pegged, really, really perfect. But if you go big, we understand there's going to be limitations of what you can do. So we were actually the last ones to bring the item out of the space because we wanted to see what everyone took. And we felt like our item was big enough to be ambitious, like in the top half of the ambition, but something that could test our abilities with techniques and not be, sitting around for a lot of hours with a completed build, wondering if we didn't go ambitious enough.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we picked the one we did.
As you were building, was there a certain point where you started to think maybe this wasn't the right choice, or do you kind of still feel like it was the right choice, even with the outcome that it was?
He's nudging me because he knows. It's hard because when you're picking something in that room, you're obviously thinking about all the things, what's actually feasible. And because you also don't want to go home. So, if it doesn't turn out right, then you are going to probably be in the bottom two and go home. So, I mean, we felt pretty comfortable with the item that we chose, but it's hard because when you're in that time crunch, obviously you want to make it look identical. So I think for us, the challenge is learn when to stop touching it
and focus on parts that need the attention. Yeah. Like the back of our item was actually fairly complex and required a lot of time.
Because they said it's a 360 build, which probably isn't something that was shared. So they look at the build from all sides. It's not just the front, it's also the back too. So the back was much more complex than the front was.
And way more time consuming. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put all this time and effort to make sure the back has all these angles right. And due to that, it came down with not enough time making sure that the front looked ideal. And that's the first point of presentation. Yeah. So looking back, definitely would have focused more on the presentation side of things to make sure that was dialed in and have the issues in the back that are more hidden versus the issue in the front. So, yeah.
Well, and there, in what we saw as viewers, the Brickmasters were saying, worry about the front with the screen. When you guys were worried, how much could you change your focus at that point? Like, was there a point where you're like, at this point we're already, neck deep on kind of prioritizing the back, or did you kind of feel like you maybe could have shifted at that point too?
Well, we felt pretty confident about the front. So I think we actually weren't worried about the front. It was the back that we wanted to make sure that looked great, and it did look great. Actually, it looked like on
the
point.
Back looked really, really good.
But I think obviously that TV, the item that we picked, had a glass.
Had like a bubble screen, and then the trim was like angled and came to points, and I got too caught in how accurate can I make these corners, try and look angled versus are the proportions of the screen vertical, square, or horizontal. And when you're so close to it for so long and you're building like within a foot of it, you don't realize until you step back, that is skewed. Like that's wrong. And Aubree tried warning me multiple times, but my stress was peak and I was getting real nervous. And so only when we finally got it hooked on and I stepped back, I was like,
Shoot.
Oh, I see exactly what Aubrey was saying. I should have stepped back and looked at it. And that's ultimately, I know if we just took like 3 studs off of one side, 3 studs off the other with the trim, it would have given it at least a square screen. But the bubble part, we contemplated on if we just wanted to make it flat or if we wanted to try and use slopes. But you're very limited with the items with that color gray to make a bubble screen. I mean, as I'm sure you know, that's going to be extremely difficult out of Lego in general, and you're limited with pieces there. So, yeah. Oh,
What was going through your head when the TV was the first thing that was noted to be Lego?
well, our first thing was, you know what? We should have done what a couple teams did and pick something that you actually couldn't
Could
even
not even
see.
see.
Something that's hidden over in the corner
On the side.
on the side where literally the judge or the guest isn't even able to see it. We're like, oh, we picked something facing right at him in the back. So, yeah. But
It's just a bad decision all around. Like full of regret. It's
yeah,
just bad decision making.
we almost picked.
They had there was that dog. There was like a dog statue, and we never really had a chance to showcase kind of like a sculpting technique, and so we really loved doing that. And so we thought about that, but then it's like that risk, like, well, what if it looks like brick, and then it's not obvious. So, anyways,
yeah, definitely. When it was picked first, though, honestly, we didn't think she actually said like our item first because we thought she was talking about something different. And then when Will was like, "Is this what you're talking about?" and she's like, "Oh, yeah," and we were like, "Wait, is that what you were actually talking about?" Like,
so they like flipped the lights on, and then he was like, "Stacy, did you pick this item or this item?" She was like, "Oh, that item."
We were like, "Whoa, wait, is that really what it was?"
We kind of just feel like Will pushed her, guided her to our build, and we were like, why would you do that?
The way she responded was like, "Oh yeah, that one," and we were like, "Oh, we didn't think you actually said that one." So then our stress went high when she was like, "Yeah, that one." We were like, "Oh, we thought you had mentioned a different item."
No,
so
she for sure mentioned a different item. I'm gonna be salty about it. It for sure was a different item, but that's okay.
Oh, that's tough. Well, and obviously this wasn't with your build, but it was really lovely to see how so many of the other contestants did help another team in the midst of trying to build the rug. And it seems like all of you guys really had a lovely, lovely bond. What was it like getting to kind of be a part of the show with these contestants and these groups?
You can go first.
Oh, it's so fun because I feel like even now for us watching the show, you really don't get a glimpse of all their personalities, which is kind of a shame because behind scenes it's everybody is such a hoot, like so funny. Lewis and Alex, their person, like
they come across as super serious teachers on the show, and yet they are so funny, so laid back,
total jokesters. I mean, Emily is still the same on or off camera. So she's still bubbly, and Kelly's, everybody's, it was just really fun because everybody got along. But we also had time to get to know each other before filming started. Before they started, filming the show. So that was nice. We had like about a week for everybody to kind of like get to know each other.
And then downtime, like after the episode ends, you're spending some time with them, and it's so nice. You really get to know them, and it makes it that much more fun when you're competing with them.
And that's much harder too, because they're like, no, don't go, but I want to beat you, but no.
Yeah. Like, oh, you got eliminated, darn. Like, we are gonna miss you, like emotionally with how fun we're having, like with all the fun we're having. But at the end of the day, it's you're trying to win.
Well, how much time do you actually have between the builds? Because 10 hours of building has to be very, very, very physically tough on you guys, I imagine.
Yeah, no, they jump into the next one. So as soon as judging's done and a person's eliminated, they're like, all right, like here's the next episode. This is the challenge. And you're like, oh my gosh, here we go. So I mean, obviously you can't film 24 hours in a day, but it's I'm sorry about that. But it's it's tiring, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's back to back. So once one challenge done, then you get ready for the next episode and on to the next.
They don't skip a beat.